Hello, this is George from George's Music Blog, and today I'm talking about the album Go Plastic by Squarepusher. As someone who's been a fan of Tom Jenkinson's music for some 25 years, I'll give you a brief overview of the album. I'll talk a little bit about why it's my favourite album by Squarepusher. Then I'll dig into the details of some of the specific tracks, and then finish with some final reflections on where it sits in the wider musical landscape. Assuming you're a fellow Squarepusher fan, you can check out more of my videos on his discography in the description below. So with all that out of the way, let's get into it. Go Plastic was the 5th album released by Squarepusher, 6th if you count Budokan Mindphone, which I don't, and it came out on Warp Records in June 2001. Now, 2001 was a big year for so-called intelligent dance music, with Drops by Aphex Twin, Double Figure by Plaid, and Confield by Autechre all dropping that year, plus a plethora of what you might call second-tier acts in the scene were also having their moment. Although it feels a little bit specious to call it a scene, because although lots of producers were grouped under the IDM label, the actual music they created differed wildly in how it sounds. But I digress. For the creation of Go Plastic, Squarepusher completely abandoned the live instruments and hardware that had been integral to his sound up until that point, and instead went completely digital. Now, Go Plastic was my first experience of Squarepusher, so this fact wasn't particularly striking to me at the time, although I guess it could have been for anyone who'd become accustomed to his music as featuring live instruments and very strong jazz influences. Now, I might as well get this out of the way now, and I did mention it at the top of the video. Go Plastic is my favourite album by Squarepusher. Pretty much always has been and always will be. Even if he came out with an absolute stormer now, it's hard to see how even a late career great could really compete with the years and years of enjoyment I've had with Go Plastic. There are some artists for whom your favourite album might differ depending on your mood or when you're asked, but not really in this case. Pretty much whenever you ask me, the answer is going to be Go Plastic. For me, it's that rare thing of a near perfect album. I don't think I would change a second on it. So there we go, that's just how it is. Fundamentally, I see Go Plastic as a project to deconstruct and then reform, reimagine and explore the core essence of genres like drum and bass, jungle and UK garage. And I'd say there are 3 core elements that define those genres. The first is sampled, edited and processed breakbeats. Then there's the bass, which doesn't really require much further explanation. Then there are the vocal samples, which are drawn from a wide pool that generally consists of genres like reggae, dancehall, dub, and hip hop. In interviews given at the time, Squarepusher talks about taking breakbeat samples and deconstructing them to the point where he is essentially treating them as instruments in themselves. So rather than fragments of sound to be pasted together like a collage, these become the very raw materials of his sound, the sine waves, the drum hit and the bass notes, etc. Thus, we have the ultimate realization of the ambition suggested on records such as Big Loader and Hard Normal Daddy, where the boundary between melody and rhythm is dissolved. Therefore, we have percussion, the physical collision of 2 objects to produce a unit of tempo, becomes melody, and melody can become condensed, fragmented and regurgitated to become a rhythm. The result is a bold, experimental record with unconventional structures and an extremely freeform approach. But Tom Jenkinson doesn't abandon the essence of what makes his source material, drum and bass, garage and jungle, etc., so appealing, i.e. it's fucking banging. Yes, this is unpredictable and challenging music, but it is not musical wankery or stuff to sit and stroke your chin to. Not that I've got anything against that in the right context. Now let's get into some of the details, and it seems silly to start anywhere other than track 1 and the lead single off the album, My Red Hot Car. Unlike the rest of Go Plastic, which is formidably uncompromising, My Red Hot Car is somewhat tongue-in-cheek, or at least the UK garage parodying vocoded vocals and tacky synth notes are. The lyrics, as I see it, are a nod to the macho and sexualized and in some cases outright sexist lyrics to be found in hip-hop and UK garage at the time, combined with the fetishization of cars as an expression of masculinity. I even remember a free CD given away with a lads mag around that time that contained tracks composed of ultra low-end bass frequencies and little else, supposedly designed to test out your car's subwoofer. So yeah, when Squarepusher croons, I'm gonna fuck you with my red hot car, and then transmogrifies car into cock, he's definitely not being serious. Nor do I see it as a complete piss take as such, but more of a sly dig at UK garage producers to say, look, I can do your style, but I can also do this, as the track jumps off from that fairly normal opening into what at first seems like freeform chaos, but is in fact a masterfully executed meander through the underbelly of urban music in 2001, with a maverick jazz sensibility twisting the dial through 100 late-night pirate radio stations. After that, we are into full-on insanity for the next two tracks, Bonneville, Occident, and Go Spastic. Each one is an epic in its own right, insanely detailed and complex, and you are taken on a wild journey that follows its own warped logic that only makes sense within the universe contained within the track. I could listen to these tracks again and again, and indeed have many, many times, and always find new details and flourishes. In fact, you could argue that that first third of Go Plastic is pretty much the pinnacle of where this kind of digital manipulation of breakbeats got to. Now, picking a favourite on an album as consistent as Go Plastic is tricky, but one track that's always up there is the Exploding Psychology, which sits at the heart of the record at track 5. It begins and ends at a sedate half-time tempo, unlike the manic 180 BPM of the preceding few tracks. And it has a strong improvisational feel, almost as if the track is constructing itself in real time, with layers of beats building on one another like rows of blocks. Within this cuboid-like structure, Jenkinson creates an awesome sense of space, with beats appearing and disappearing like platforms in an old 2D computer game, and piercing intrusions of industrial noise shredding across the mix like laser beam fire. Out of this seeming digital chaos, a surprisingly emotive melody emerges, written in liquid mercury, which closes out proceedings as the beats gradually disassemble themselves and a feeling of ultimate resolution is reached. I could go on and on about this track. It's got a really strong narrative arc. It's got this cool kind of spacey anime sort of digital vibe to it. Some portions feel like future garage. Years before that genre was even a thing. A real high point in the Pusher discography. Following the album's midway point, I Wish You Could Talk is probably the first time on Go Plastic that Tom Jenkinson plays it relatively straight, taking a sparse breakbeat with minimal adornment or rhythmic manipulation. The somber melody that builds in the background repurposes the classical piece Pachelbel's Canon to quietly devastating effect. The template of jungle and drum and bass had been put to many uses by 2001 to deploy dance floor chaos, to induce fear, awe, euphoria, to make people move, groove and chill, but rarely to create such bleak and moody epics on this sort of scale, which shares more vibes-wise with acts like Mogwai or Godspeed You Black Emperor. After that relative palette cleanser, it's back to deconstructed junglist chaos with greener waves trajectory, and even Squarepusher seems to run out of ideas at one point when he crushes the beats into a buzz of pure distortion, which is then doubled over on itself until it dissipates in a hiss of white noise. Finally, following that track, listeners are treated to some genuine respite with track 8, Tomib, which found a wider audience when it was featured on the Lost in Translation soundtrack. It is just over a minute of soothing, echoey chimes, I guess composed on a straight-up piano, fed through some kind of effect, and it is the only real moment of peace on Go Plastic. There is another short interlude at track 4 entitled Meteng Excuse V1.2, although that is more of an exercise in tension and release by means of crushed digital noise and the sound of a bell being struck, rather than it is any real kind of respite or succor. The final portion of the album is less of a white-knuckle thrill ride and is more experimental. My Fucking Sound presumably references the track My Sound, which is found on his earlier album Music is Rotted One Note. In my video covering that album, I talked about how that track is my favourite from that record, although it is not really representative of the sound of that album as a whole, being as it is Squarepusher's take on avant-garde jazz fusion, and My Sound is much more melodically and rhythmically accessible than the rest of the album. My Fucking Sound, on the other hand, is 7 uncompromising minutes of breakbeats knotted so thoroughly it is like hacking through 7-foot-high brambles. Every now and then, a very tactile sound punctuates that chaos, so a digital signal might suddenly morph into the sound of a plastic cup being flicked, which is a sensation akin to hallucinating household objects out of clouds of static. Latterly, we hear the man himself emerging from those clouds of static to remind us that he's the fucking daddy, a callback to his 1997 track Come On My Selector, and thus laying the foundation for that recurring in-joke. Finally, in the interest of thoroughness, I should mention Plasto Flex Out, which rounds out proceedings in a slightly more gentle fashion. Tom lays down a boom bap beat and a kind of smoking weed in a parked car at 3 a.m. sort of vibe before flexing out with his bass guitar. At least I'd always thought of it as his bass guitar. The fact of this album being 100% digital would seem to contradict that, but whatever it is, it creates that very distinct sound of kind of plucked vibrations. On reflection, even by Squarepusher standards, Go Plastic is an unforgiving and relentless record, and it's not one you're likely to enjoy unless you are already pretty comfortable in that dystopian post-urban music deconstructed sound world. But that harshness is tempered by a restless sense of exploration, creativity, and ultimately fun. That's what it's all about at the end of the day, isn't it? Whenever I put Go Plastic on, I know I'm not going to be thinking about anything else for the next 45 minutes. It completely captures my attention. There is so much detail. Every single second of sound has been laboured over to the nth degree. And even though it is my favourite album by Squarepusher, I don't necessarily see it as the only high point in his discography. He'd go on to create equally impressive and original music, and you can check out more of my videos on said albums in the description below. But Go Plastic is a super condensed hit of a very specific kind of sound, and one could argue if Squarepusher effectively exhausted that avenue of exploration with the production of this album. But electronic music producers are nothing if not inventive with their constant recycling of samples, so it's not as if Go Plastic is the last word on anything. If you're yet to be convinced of the genius of Squarepusher and are somehow still watching this video at this point, then please go away and listen to Go Plastic now, but not before hitting like and also checking out my channel for more of the same. Okay, that's it from me. Thanks very much. Goodbye.